Hello, you multicultural melting pots of masticants. And that convoluted malt mention is accredited to William Killen. Thank you, William, and welcome, maltmates, to Ralphie Review 908 Extras, in which, having reviewed a quality spirit in my previous review, 908, Cragganmore Special Release 2019, 12-year-old, 58 point something percent, lovely juicy stuff. I now go on to talk about other things related and connected to whisky which I think you may be interested to know about, and it will help you in your exploration and your discoveries of malt moments. And I've got an interesting one here because I've never had a bottle of red wine sitting on the barrel before. But there's a specific reason for this, and I have had the screw top off. I do prefer wine bottles with corks rather than screw tops, but I'm kind of an old-fashioned snob that way. I just like the whole theatre of uncorking bottles, and I know you get a little bit of damage happens now and again, and it can be a bit fiddly, particularly when you're no longer sober, but hey, I'm a stickler for certain traditions. So I've had the top off of this, and I've been letting it oxidise a little, because as much as we benefit from the slight oxidisation of whisky, it's much more pronounced with wine when you let it breathe, having opened the bottle for a few hours before you pour a glass and enjoy the contents. And I'm going to describe the experience of this red wine for a very specific reason. And I'd start by saying that we're all very much aware of the fashion in the whisky industry in recent years to source white, rosé, red wine, all sorts of derivative of wine casks and use them for maturing or finishing or double maturing single malt whiskies, and of course some blends as well. And there's a very simple reason for that. It's the availability and the price of decent quality wood which is fit for purpose, because the cost of decent bourbon casks, and especially sherry casks, the hogsheads and butts in particular, has absolutely rocketed in recent years. And unfortunately, some of that wood is really not so good when it comes to maturing whisky. And every distiller knows, although some might not admit it, that as soon as you put a decent, fresh-made spirit into a bad cask, your result's only going to go one way, and it's going to follow the cask. It could be that the cask wood is perfectly sound, and it's just the previous contents have gone rancid. It could be that the cask has just been stored too long and dried out, and then the wood's shrunk, and then they've tried to swell the wood again by using hot steam or steeping in cold water. There's a number of influential factors, but people have, by and large, been open-minded about accepting the fact that in recent years there's some very good finishes or double maturations or whatever you want to call it been done in wine casks. But it's only recently that we've now found a wine, where I am anyway, which has been additionally matured in a Scotch whisky cask. This is a big wine company, Jacob's Creek. It's owned by Pernod Ricard, who also own the Chivas brand, and quite a number of very decent single malt distilleries. And it makes sense for a large company to swap over casks, test things out, and try different techniques that they deem to be cost effective in trying to maintain or even improve the quality of what they're producing. And it's certainly the case that I've noticed online discussions, and there's been comments, more than one comment left, in that you will find red whites, that have been matured in ex-bourbon casks. The question is, we're familiar with how a red wine might influence a whiskey or any other spirit, but how does a whiskey cask influence a fruit liquor, which has got a relatively low percent of alcohol in it? In this case, give me a second, 14.5%. Now, actually, many wines are about 12%, so this is a slightly higher strength, and it comes across really well, to be honest, when you're tasting it. So I'm going to smell it, I'm going to taste it, I'm going to describe it to you, and at the end of it, I'm actually going to recommend you look out for a bottle, because I can tell you right now, I've really, really enjoyed the experience, and it didn't cost that much for the bottle of wine. You see, the thing is, if you track down a bottle of wine like this, you get the bragging rights. It's additional topic of conversation for the malt moments with the malt mates. The nose comes across like a combination of well-married, fresh, red fruit, cherry, cranberry wine that isn't too acidic. And this is actually a Shiraz. And I tend to be put off a lot of Shirazes because I do find them acidic, rather like Rieslings. Some Rieslings are horrendously acidic, and champagnes as well. But this is a very pleasant, slightly sweetened nose, in that you get a notion that there's some like black currant jam or red currant jam or cranberry jelly in with it. So there's something enriching the wine, slightly sweetening it, and giving a kind of conserve or jam-like texture, flavour, nose. Well, the whole lot actually, when you come to taste it. And I can't fault it. There's a little bit of something lime on the finish, so it's relatively complex nose for a 2018 vintage Shiraz, which is actually quite impressive. So it's taking on an additional sense of maturity for its relative age, which I really, really notice and I'm enjoying. When you taste it, it starts off as a wine, but as it develops, the tannins kick in and then recede, leaving something more cereal, slightly sweet. It's not quite malty because the fruit notes kind of mask that, but that slight confection experience in the nose, which is really the highlight of this wine. It's the nose rather than the taste, but the taste backs it up quite nicely. A perfectly acceptable and decent table wine, without a doubt. You get something slightly syrupy, slightly cereal, almost slightly toast-like, as in toasted bread from out the grill or out a toaster. White bread. I tend to be quite, I don't like to swirl my whiskies, but I really don't mind swirling the wines a little bit because it's far lower in actual alcoholic strength, so it doesn't suffer in the same way that whiskey does. A common technique that sommeliers and wine enthusiasts employ, which we don't do with whiskey, but it's worth a shot. It's to actually draw the liquor over your tongue swiftly, to aerate it and to activate it. With wine, it kind of chases out the lighter flavours so that you can enjoy it before the relatively low strength of alcohol just makes it disappear. Wonderfully clean. There's nothing cloying in the finish. It's not overdone. I have to say, the person responsible in the warehouse for getting the balance right has done a pretty good job actually. It's nice because it's taken away that edginess that you get with young wines. It's rounded it without adding a particular lot of complexity to the experience, but you get an enrichment of the experience. Where the wine's beginning to fade, that fade is delayed because of the presence of the previous content whisky casks that's remained in the whisky casks. And it's kind of assimilated very well into the wine. Now, as far as I'm aware, you can get red wines which have been finished in bourbon casks. I have no doubt that American wine producers are even at this moment exploring all sorts of different cask permutations for adding variety to their wines, whether it be aged gin, which would be fascinating, oak cask matured gins, whether it be eau de vies, whether it be aged tequilas, again that would be very, very interesting, bourbons, whiskey, Scotch whiskey, absolutely, good result, thoroughly enjoying this, recommend you try it. And then of course there's rum as well. So will we see wines? At the moment we're seeing red wines, but I think laterally we'll see white wines. A nice Chardonnay which has been matured, additional maturation in a fresh emptied rum cask. I think that could be amazing. We're familiar with the fact that there are beers out there that have been matured in ex-bourbon or whiskey casks, and that makes rational sense because beers are made from grain, but it's much more of a challenge when you have a fermented beverage made specifically from grapes. How's it going to mesh? How's it going to sit when you mix the grape and the grain? And as any drinker will advise you, you don't drink whiskey and wine at the same time because it's a guarantee for a hangover and a headache. But in this occasion, big Ralphie thumbs up, by the way. That is one big thumbs up. Thoroughly enjoying this. Definitely recommended. I've bought another 2 bottles for standby because it will keep just fine. And I would conclude by saying that it reminds me, the more it oxidises, the more it reminds me of a lower strength young port that has just been Atlantic matured on location in Madeira. Or in Portugal, sorry. I'm thinking of Madeira there. In Portugal. And yeah, that's about it. Hey, I'm Ralphie. Hope you've enjoyed this. It's a little bit different. And I hope you're looking forward to my next review because I will be, yes, yet again, by the fireside, introducing my Whisky of the Year for 2022. But before I do so, I'm going to have an extras, which has nothing to do with whiskey. But if you enjoy your cigars now and again, I've got something for you that you're going to find entertaining. I'm Ralphie, in the bothy, wishing you well, seasonal greetings, all the rest of it. Speak to you soon. Bye.